Asteroid of fear.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And this is going to be another episode of my journey. We're going to call this one the Florida years. So, where I think we left off was I was leaving the University of Florida. Sorry about that. I left the University of Florida and I think I moved back home. And after moving back home, I mulled around a bit, and then I helped open a bagel slash coffee shop. And this was the first time I ever had bagels, and first time I really ever had coffee. I really could have used coffee in the Navy after discovering a desire for coffee. But yeah, that was fun. It was interesting. I worked 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and just played a lot of guitar, had a dog for a little bit, and yeah, didn't have a lot of people around, so I was definitely just kind of hanging solo. Maybe smoking a lot. Remember having a little Rottweiler named Casey, after like Casey Jones from Grateful Dead. And we'd go like mudding on the dirt roads and maybe smoke a little. This was at the time my parents had split, and there's a couple of time periods I kind of get them confused, or they double dip. But I think this one was like leading into the Florida years. I want to say, yeah, I opened the coffee shop. I was working 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So many days it was like wake up at 3:45, walk the dog, maybe go back to bed till 4:30 or just stay up. I don't remember. And then I would leave because we would work 6 to 2, so we would get there a little early so we could open. And, you know, I might like smoke one on the way. And then basically, for me, I was always pretty strong organizational and fast. So I would either be on the register or actually making coffee and espresso. And they had somebody come and train us who had a local coffee shop. That was my introduction to making espresso like properly. And at one point during that time, I remember I got called into the office. I thought I was in trouble, and they told me that I guess the gentleman who owns the coffee shop came and I had made him the best espresso he'd ever had. So kudos to me. Yeah, a little mini achievement there. But yeah, it was a lot of days of, you get off at 2, you get home at 2:30 or 3. Remember, I'm getting up at 3:30, 3:45 with a dog. You're coming home walking the dog. You're pretty beat. Um, I don't know. At that time, I would probably drink a little, maybe work out, play guitar, go to bed fairly early because you're getting up at 3 something. So I'm talking like 8, 8:30. Because I wasn't doing a lot and I was just saving money. And that's where kind of Florida comes into play. is I was saving money, and one of the gentlemen I was in ROTC with, who had also been a nuke, he ended up getting out of the program for whatever reason and was going back to the fleet. And he needed to rent his one bedroom apartment. And so, me and my buddy Andrew, who you see this, I was like, well, hey, he's gonna rent it. It's like 330 a month or something. Maybe it was 170 each. And it was pretty big, but we were like, we'll share. I mean, we've been roommates maybe before or maybe not. And we're like, sure, why not? But he wasn't going to be able to come till like a month later. And so I went ahead and went, and this was back to Gainesville, where I went to University of Florida. Um, and I started off because he also worked at Pizza Hut. Oh, he was working there. He'd gotten out. I don't think he'd gone back to the fleet, or maybe he had and already did whatever he had to do, 6 months or a year. And he got me a job at Pizza Hut. So I was going from the bagel shop to Pizza Hut. Not the most glamorous job, but it was a guaranteed job nonetheless. And I had a job at McAllister's, and the Pizza Hut manager kept showing up late. And so I quit there, and um, the next day I think I had a job at Chili's, and so I quit McAllister's too and had one better job. But yeah, I went down there. We shared a one bedroom. It was an older school, older build, so the bedrooms were huge, and we had two twins, space in between us. But on those days, I was kind of into psychedelics back in those days. Um, yeah, so now I know where the two time frames come from. I probably spent probably a year, maybe a year and a half back here. Maybe it was less, maybe it was more. And that's when I did the bagel shop thing. But mulling around, yeah, it was some wild party time, some tripping for sure. Remember, I had like a failed kind of naval career, ended up doing what all the things I didn't want to do. And when I was happy in Japan, I couldn't actually say, admit and just say, hey, this is what I want to do. I would prefer to stay here, which led into an officer program I did not want and got out of that. But, I'd had a series of things I did not want. And so part of this was like, I want to do me. And so for a long time, I remember not doing much, just kind of being a bum, smoking a lot, maybe drinking, probably not so much, doing some psychedelics. But we had some great times, man, playing music. There was a lot of fun stuff. Concerts, the group of people we hung out with, Naja, Jessica, Corey, Laura was in there, Andrew. It was just some wild times, good times. But yeah, I ended up going to Florida, and we were kind of burned out on whatever this place had to offer. And so Andrew met me down there, and he worked at McAllister's for like a day till they were like, clean the bathroom. He's like, I thought this was food service. Uh, yeah. Andrew, this is Leo. Where are you? Yeah, But yeah, he ended up working there, and then he got a job at Walmart, like in the jewelry area. And I was working at Chili's, and that was kind of my intro into restaurants. I had always wanted to cook. It was kind of something I wanted to do. My dad used to cook. It was always the part I enjoyed of like even being out in the woods, doing the military type thing, was kind of building a fire, cooking something over it. Growing up in the country, it's kind of what we did. You like to cook outside um, as a young man, young boy. So I was like, it's time to make me happy and do something I always wanted to do. Because you got to remember, being a cook didn't require college. And remember, the whole story leading up to this was parents wanted me to go to college, more so my dad, and I did not want to go to college. Maybe I did, just when I wanted to go. I mean, I have a master's degree, so obviously I wanted to go, I guess, subconsciously, or it finally worked. But, I'm like, I need to do what I want to do. And so I ended up, working at Chili's. That was kind of my introduction into, outside the bagel shop, Pizza Hut, McAllister's Deli, and then now Chili's. And it was just fun. I learned a lot. We had Chili's softball team. We went to Jenny Springs there in Gainesville, like a company party. I mean, the people were cool. Everybody smoked and partied. Um, that was that time of my life. There was no school. It was let's be poor, eat ramen twice a day sometimes, you know, buy some LSD, like 3 for $10. One of those is going to last you all day. Two of those is a good 18-hour day off. So for $10 on the cheap, you could sit and listen to music, play guitar. You didn't have to have TV, read a book. You could do all kinds of stuff. Your imagination being trapped inside, kind of. Um, Not having a lot of money, not knowing a lot of people, and not having a lot of places to go or be. That was it was good. So I was very fond of that time. And then at some point, I decided, I don't even know how. Remember, this is pre-internet, and I want, I don't know if I moved to West Palm Beach with my uncle briefly for like a week or two. And then I ended up moving from West Palm Beach so from Gainesville to West Palm Beach to Boca Raton. So I don't know if I told you the web of I dated a girl from Boca Raton. Her best friend is how I met Jamie, who was from Boca and used to date the best friend. And his best friend in Boca was getting ready to move out and needed a roommate. And Andrew had stayed behind in Gainesville. For whatever reason, it was time for me to go. And um, no, I couldn't have. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe I didn't move to West Palm. Somehow, because I transferred from Chili's in Gainesville, Florida to Chili's in Boca Raton, Town East Mall. And Adam and I ended up getting an apartment right down the street from Townies Mall. So Adam was my roommate. Now, being from a small southern town and, growing up super religious, but not super religious, in a super religious place that's mostly Southern Baptist, you know, this girl I dated, her best friend, that was one of the first Jewish people I'd met. And Jamie's best friend, Adam, who was my roommate, was also Jewish. So I got exposed to kind of that. That was also kind of new, being introduced to me as I'm going on this cooking journey and transferring, going from Gainesville to Boca Raton. And but yeah, the Boca years were pretty great. There was had a lot of fun. Yeah, Adam and I lived at a great location. We had a bar that was open till 5 in the morning, which was super cool. That had like live music, open mic. Adam played in a band, and so I was enamored with that because I played guitar and was a beginner, and things were so much different there in the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. How everything worked and happened, so that was cool to have a roommate who was in a band and playing. And so I'd go see a lot of shows. We had the surf club on Wednesday nights. They had like reggae night. That was huge, and obviously that would go on to influence me. And yeah, I mean, I just hung out a lot, worked a lot, partied a lot. Um, but what most people might be surprised to know is during that time there was quite a few years of celibacy, you know. But let's tie that back as into, my self-worth had been eroded from what happened when I was 18 and having an affair with someone who was married that, you know, I saw it as trouble for me. So the best thing for me was to remain celibate. I had plenty of opportunity, but some days you're like, man, I wish I would have taken that opportunity. But at the same time, the headspace I was in and everything, like I need more to repent for, more to wrestle with and struggle with. But yeah, outside of, I mean, it was just a lot of that, staying up late, partying a lot, going to shows, going to local shows, going open mics, Wednesday nights out till 5 in the morning, maybe drink a little, smoke a little, um, sleep till 2, go to work at 4. Yeah, work till 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, depending on the weekend. But a lot of years doing that. And then at some point, one of the guys I worked with at Chili's, um, he went to Cape Cod and he actually, they needed somebody and he offered me a job, but I couldn't go because I just wasn't at that stage where I could leave my lease or anything like that. And although that would have been a great opportunity and I'm thankful to be thought of, but that should show you what kind of person I am when people think of me and they're like, oh, we need someone. And he came back, and instead of coming back to Chili's after that summer, he ended up at Jake's Seafood. And all of a sudden, they needed someone. And guess who he thought of? Moi. So the difference is this was more a step up, like from casual dining. It was steak and seafood and um, nicer. Yeah. you know, not overly expensive, but I mean, we had steak and lobster. It, I started off on the fish grill and then the meat grill, learned saute a little bit. And I was quite learning a lot. And then our sous chef, Donnie, left. And when he left, Eric went from the meat grill to Expo because he had kind of the most experience. But then he knew me as being more organized and working and was like, why don't you work Expo? And I was like, are you sure? Like, even though you're like the one who brought me here, he's like, yes, absolutely. You're better at this. I'd rather work the meat station. I'm like, that's fine. So that's how I became the expo and how I got a ton of experience at the pass. Um, so I could work all the stations proficiently. But I would say organization is my skill, organization and timing, because you need to have worked all the stations to know how long things take. So like, oh shit, get that 18-ounce New York strip on. But don't fire the salmon till way down the road. So I was good at that kind of thing, and I enjoyed the hell out of it and had a great time. And um, there was some point during this time I had also got invited to Colorado from one of the girls I worked with at Chili's, Jen, but I couldn't go out there, and that's when I was still living with Adam. And at some point, through working at Jake's, I met my next roommate, Patrick, and him and his girlfriend had moved from New Jersey, and he was working maybe as a food runner or busser or something. And she was moving out, and Adam and I were coming to the end of a lease, and we were just different people, you know. And I was ready to do something different. I'd moved to Jake's from Chili's and I'd lived with Adam for like 2, 3 leases, like longer leases, probably the 2-year types. And it was time to do something different. And so I moved in with Patrick. And this was in it was like our apartments were across the street from the shopping center where the Jake's Seafood and Steakhouse was. In the shopping center, like you have a Blockbuster, a Starbucks, Tommaso's Pizza, Publix, some other restaurants. It's like a big shopping center. And we lived right across the street from it. And so it was nice. It was close to work. And, we were like next to a park. We had like this mosquito netted in Chattahoochee patio where we had some sitting chairs and had a weight bench out there that was nice. And so yeah, I was fond of that time. Again, more partying, more ladies, more guitar. Because one of the guys we ended up working with at uh, Jake's was from Hawaii and he could play guitar, and so we would all jam together. And he lived in the complex with us, and so we all worked around the same schedule. And so yeah, it was so much fun. But it was also during this time where I'd worked in kitchens quite a bit now, because I'd even had some in between kitchens that were like a day or two that were not very good, not very fruitful. And, we had this saute chef, Lee Dan, and he was a sous chef in the morning at one restaurant, Fifth Avenue, something grill, and in Pompano, I think. And then he would come to us and work saute at night. He was 45. He had a daughter in college. He bought a new truck, and I was like, man, do I want to be 45 like I'm in my 20s? Probably 23, 22, 23. Don't want to be like in a kitchen getting burned, everything that goes on in a kitchen, the debauchery. Do you want to be doing that when you're 45? Trying to send your kid through school, working the AM shift and the PM shift? Because working in a kitchen is hard work. And I was like, no, I don't. And so that's when I started looking into college again. And so I ended up enrolling in Palm Beach Community College. And, I think to fit my schedule, I ended up cutting down to like, I wasn't overly working at Jake's. So I would work, weekends mostly so I could go to school and have off during the week and maybe like one weeknight. And I would just come in like mostly late and work whatever, and they would do all the prep and stuff. So kind of like a hired gun a little bit, but I was kind of okay with that because I had already mentally departed onto something different and knew that school was kind of the focus and a job would come and go. And so that's what I did for a long time, and I felt like pretty balanced then because I was getting some work in where I was around people, but I wasn't overly committed, 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I was going to school probably 3 days a week, 4 days a week, exercising daily, you're socializing at school, you're learning. I'm spending a lot of time at the library. I mean, that was one of the better times of my life, going to the beach, maybe smoke a little, go to reggae night. Life was pretty good then. Did lose some people along the way. I remember John one time, one of our runners who was like, I think it was New Year's Eve, he wanted me to go out with him and I couldn't. And I had the next day off, and I remember Patrick coming home and being like, can I come in and be a runner? And he's like, John didn't show up, John's dead. I was like, oh man. He overdosed on painkillers. And I think about that often. If I'd gone out with him, what was it, because nobody went out with him and he was lonely? Did he take too much? Or I don't remember. I know I just stayed local. I did something. Maybe I was with someone, possibly. There's a reason I didn't go. But maybe he didn't end up going anywhere and he just took some pills. But I wrestled with that for a little bit of thinking, would the situation have been different if I had said yes, I'll go, or I'll hang out with you, or mm-hmm. That was sucky because we were all kind of a tight group. My roommate, Aaron, one of our friends, JP, um, who I'd worked with at Chili's and brought him over to Jake's. He was real good friends with John. And maybe he's how John got the job. But yeah, but that was during a time too, and then you could tell like I knew Jake's was gonna eventually shut down, and I think I left, but I knew I was already like mentally gone. And one day, Patrick said like the doors were locked, or they were able to get like their knives and the boom box, and that was it. So, so um, that happened, and I don't know. Right around that time, I must have wrecked my truck going across the street. I got T-boned from somebody in a turning lane that tried to continue going straight, or they wouldn't have hit me. They T-boned me, and so I had to ride a bike for a while and work across the street for a while. But that became okay. But around then, that's when Jake's had to have shut down. And I can't remember if I had one other job or something in between, but I was with somebody having lunch at Chili's, and one of the old AM line cooks, Aubrey, who we kind of learned to get along further down the road. Like, we used to argue. I used to be a little angry turd, coming out of my situation, finally getting to do what I wanted to do, but feeling like I'd been living for everybody else for all these years. I didn't like anybody fucking telling me what to do, even if they were trying to do it for my best interest. And but he was like, asked me what I was doing because he'd come out to the bar area to get some ice or something. And next thing I know, the manager's over there. He's like, "Hey, Aubrey said like you're really good on the line, and we need someone." And I just happened to need a job, and so for a little bit, I was riding a bike to Chili's, and my excuse was, if nothing else, I can use not ride a bike to flirt with the women, get them to pick me up and give me rides. Yeah, could do that. Um, but yeah, I was just free. I didn't really worry about anything. Like, I was like, I can get a ride if I need it. I know enough people. I can meet enough people. I'd done psychedelics enough, done them alone, gone to like a big concert one time at West Palm Beach Amphitheater, Jimmy's Chicken Shack. There was all kinds of people. Um, Tripped solo all day, talked to some people. I would go to shows, Lenny Kravitz and Smash Mouth. Um, I would see people I knew from college, from Palm Beach Community College, or I'd meet people. I wasn't about to miss out just because nobody else wanted to go. So I was pretty comfortable with things and didn't really care about being judged or anything. And so, but that was one of the most freeing times because I didn't need much. I had a bike, I had my guitar, I had learning, I had friends, I could go for a jog, go to the beach. Um, yeah, it was good. And somewhere in here is where I meet my next girlfriend, which happened to be my roommate Patrick's ex girlfriend. We had the same ex girlfriend. Um, she would come over and maybe hang out sometimes, or she would call. And I don't know, I think maybe we'd hung out a time or two. I don't know. I don't remember. And then she started calling and she would want to talk to me. And then it felt kind of weird. And then I think maybe she told him, and like he talked to me and said something like, "Look, she feels kind of weird about this. So, like, I'm telling you, like, I'm okay with it. It's okay with me. We're like done. She likes you." It was something like that. Because I can remember feeling off about it. And then, like, I remember like hanging out with her quite a bit, helping her look for a place in Fort Lauderdale. I think she was relocating from Boca. Helped her with that. And we were hanging out quite a bit. And then, um, yeah, we ended up hanging out more and hooking up. And who was it? Said, we started rapping, and that's how it happened. Yeah. But that was also, a good time. And I think at that time, like I was living partially in Boca, staying in Fort Lauderdale with her because she still worked in Boca. And then, I cannot remember how it all flows together, but maybe Patrick was wanting to do something else, or Chrissy asked me to move in, and I was spending a lot of time there anyway, and I feel like I'd gotten rid of my job at Chili's or stopped it. And when I moved to Fort Lauderdale with her, instead of making the 45-minute drive for that, I ended up getting a job at a record store in the mall where I met John Frusciante's dad one Christmas year. Um, and I worked with her sometimes doing stuff, but I worked with also her boss's husband. Had a some clam plots, and I would go clam diving with him. Um, put on scuba gear and get the nets, shake out the clams. It's usually like in February when it's cold. So I did a bunch of different things. Spent a lot of time at the beach, walking. Very enjoyable time. Um, Chrissy made good money, and she'd also been in a bad car accident where she'd gotten a settlement, so she had some money, and you know, she took me to New Jersey, New York. She was from New Jersey, and her uncles took us to New York. That was a lot of fun. She introduced me to pork roll, which I'm still deeply fond of, and get it every chance I get when there's a Kroger around that has it. Yeah, definitely love the pork roll. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. And then, I don't know, maybe because I'd finished my 2 year degree at this point, and I don't know if I was going to go for a 4 year, but Chrissy had wanted to go to college. I cannot remember why. I don't know if I had anything to do with it. Oh man, we had some good times playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Monopoly on PlayStation 2. A lot of late nights, a lot of good times. Um, yeah, a little side tangent. But I think she ended up going to the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale with like design and something because, her mom worked for K-Hov in New Jersey, K-Hovnanian, some builders. Don't sound like builders. Sounds like bad guys in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And then she worked for some builders, Siemens and Boca, and I think she was into like home design, maybe interior design, and maybe that's what she took at Fort Lauderdale Institute. And, I don't know. That was a time where she was like working, going to school a lot. It was a lot. I spent a lot of time, like, I'd given up a lot of my friends in Boca, all the people I knew and hung out with, and moved to Fort Lauderdale, which was probably 45 minutes away. So it's kind of isolated. So what's the better idea was I don't maybe because I'd gone to the University of Florida and thought maybe I would go back my third and fourth year, and she's like, I think they have like a 4 year design program. Maybe I'll do that, and I have enough settlement money. Let's move to Gainesville. And so it's like, yeah, you have some cracks in the relationship because I felt isolated. Uh, she was too much away. I was stuck into myself too much. And this was kind of like during the Napster days. I do remember that. I could sit at home and download songs. I did work at a record store, so that was important to me, going and seeing shows and stuff. But yeah, moving in together and isolating together is not going to help you if you're not already together and strong together. But this is young 20s, probably 24, and we moved to Gainesville, a little 420 square foot apartment. I think she was going to school, maybe. I cannot remember what we were doing. But whatever it was, it did not last long. It was okay for a little bit, maybe because Gainesville was familiar to me, but I don't know if it was the people, being in a 420 square foot apartment, somebody you already are not 100% with, all that together, just, I couldn't handle it and had to leave. Like, I thought I would live in South Florida, like the Boca, Fort Lauderdale, like Boca, I really felt kind of home for the first time in a while. Felt like it was my kind of established place because, like, even my friend Jamie, when he was off doing digs in Wyoming, I would still go to his parents' house. Like, we were that close. Like, me, Adam, Jamie's parents, they would have me over every Christmas. Jamie was definitely my best friend in Florida. Um, but yeah, a lot of good times with Jay and Mary Jane, his sister Kelly, a lot of playing darts, smoking, Beatle brunch on Sundays. They got me the Yellow Submarine, the White Album. I would go over and have dinner with them, I think, once a week when Jamie was on digs in college because he was a geology, paleontology guy at FAU. And probably him being in college influenced me a little to go back into college. But yeah, we moved to Gainesville, and I don't think either of us were working. Maybe she was getting ready to go to school, and I couldn't take it. Something had to been the last straw, and I think she might have been away doing something, and I might have packed up and left. Um, I left some expensive tennis rackets and my wakeboard behind, but or we got in an argument and she left, and it was like, I won't be here when you come back, kind of a thing. Or maybe she came back and it was like, where are you? I don't know. I don't remember. But I can't imagine. It had to have been that great. And, you know, it had to have been one of those where it's either late in the day, the morning, something. I mean, I'd given up everything and, you know, two roommates in Boca. And now I'm like north, because it was like when you're that far south in Florida, you don't ever go north. And then when you got north, I'm like, man, I can't go back far south. Giving up everyone. I don't know anyone. What am I going to do? I guess, fuck it, let's go home. And Andrew, remember this is pre cell phone time. He's like, he'd remember he had stayed in Gainesville when I went down south. And then now he'd moved back and he was in Conroe area. And he's like, he might have come to visit a couple of times, but he's like, you don't have to come back home. You can come down here and stay with me. So I was like, fuck it. It's not as bad as going home to the place you're from. And I left at some weird part of the day because I remember either I was leaving Florida or coming into Texas, and it had to have been a certain time of morning. Like, I am not a U2 fan at all. Adam, my roommate, was a U2 fanatic and had like 80 something U2 albums. And I hated U2. And the only thing I remember, I didn't even turn it off when I was so drained from this experience and all this time. The frustration leading up to me having to leave and driving into Texas, I think it was like U2, It's a Beautiful Day was on. Just that course. And I was like, oh, I guess I did the right thing. But yeah, that ends my time in Florida. I want to say this was April. Um, April of 2001. Because I would turn 25 a couple of months later. I remember that. I had my 25th birthday in June. And then September 11th happening September. So yeah, April 2001. That's when I came back from Florida. So I started there in March of 94, like boot camp. Spent a lot of time there, other than a small departure to Mississippi, Japan, and coming back to Gainesville. A little brief stint back in Texas, and then I had my 21st birthday in Florida. I remember that. And then, yeah. So really 19 to, well, yeah, 19 to 24 roughly. I was in Florida. And a little time from 17 to 18, yeah. So, 'cause I had my 19th birthday in Japan. So yeah, 18 to 19 that was Mississippi and Japan. So yeah, 17 to 18, Florida, 19 to 24 with one little brief stint in Texas. And those are the Florida years, but and next we'll start back in Texas, where I think I've been ever since. Yep. All right. I got to get this thing uploaded, edited, clipped, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time. Go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
Asteroid of fear.